A while back, I was at a little get-together, and I listened to someone confidently tell the whole room something that simply wasn't true. I knew it wasn't true. I could have pulled my phone right out of my pocket, done a 10-second search, and set the record straight in front of everybody. And I just didn't. I took a sip of my coffee and I let it go. Now, 20 years ago, I would have probably jumped in. I would have corrected it, explained it, and found every evidence to prove it. But I've learned something as I've gotten older. Staying quiet in a moment like that isn't weakness. It wasn't me going silent because I thought my opinion didn't matter. It was me choosing my peace over being right. Hi, I'm Michelle, and on my channel we talk about creating a peaceful, confident life after 50, especially if you're living alone, traveling solo, or navigating retirement. So today I want to talk about why I stopped arguing and why I stopped correcting people, and why I think it might be one of the most freeing shifts that happens to us as we get older. First, I don't argue over opinions anymore. At this stage of life, everyone has an opinion, and it is very, very unlikely that you're going to change theirs. Think about it. The people that you know who are our age, their views on politics, money, how they live, on how other people ought to behave, those views were built over 50, 60, 70 plus years. They're not sitting there waiting for me to come along with the perfect argument and dismantle the whole thing over a cup of coffee. It just doesn't happen. I've never once watched someone slap their forehead in the middle of a debate and say, "You know what? You're right. I've believed the wrong thing my entire life." Now, that doesn't mean I pretend to agree with things that I don't. If someone says something and I see it differently, I might let them know in a simple, "I don't see it that way." And then I'm done. I'm not going to spend the next 20 minutes explaining why, marshaling my evidence, defending my position, and getting my blood pressure up over something that was never going to move an inch anyway. Because winning that argument never actually feels as good as we imagine it. And losing an afternoon to it, walking away tense, replaying it, carrying that irritation around for the rest of the day, that cost is far too high. I'd rather say my piece in one sentence and go back to enjoying my day. That's not giving up. That's knowing what my time is worth. The same thing applies to a situation I used to find even more challenging to endure. When I hear someone state something false. This is the one I really had to work on because I'm a curious person and I love to actually know things. So when I hear someone state something as a plain fact when it simply isn't, my old instinct was to correct it right there on the spot. We have a whole world at our fingertips now. It's all right there on the phone. I can do a quick search, find a book, a video, find the actual research, and debunk what somebody just said in a matter of seconds. But is it really worth it? As long as what they're saying isn't hurting anyone, as long as it's not putting a person in danger or damaging someone who can't defend themselves, I've learned to just let it be. When the thing that someone is wrong about, when it finally touches their own life, when it actually costs them something, they will figure out the truth on their own. They'll probably learn it far better that way than they ever would have from me correcting them across a room full of people. Me pointing it out doesn't teach anybody anything. What it actually does is raise everyone's blood pressure, puts the other person on the defensive, so now they're not even hearing the information. They're just protecting their pride. And it takes valuable time out of my day that I would much rather spend on something I enjoy. So I let people be wrong now, sometimes about things that I know a great deal about. And I found that there's a strange and wonderful freedom in it. The freedom of no longer appointing yourself the person who has to keep the whole world accurate. This isn't just me getting tired, and it isn't me getting lazy. As we age, our brains actually shift their focus toward emotional well-being. We've lived enough life, we've gathered enough experience that some part of us finally understands that peace is worth way more than winning. And it shows up in a few specific ways. The first is simply better control over our emotions. Older adults tend to calm down faster. A small insult that would have ruined my whole day at 30 just doesn't land the same way anymore. I feel it and then I move on, instead of holding on to it for hours. The second is a focus on the present. I spend far less time now stewing over some future worry or thinking about a past mistake. I'm much more interested in whether I feel good right now. And the third is that I need a whole lot less approval than I used to. Age brings a strong, settled sense of who you are. And when you truly know who you are, other people's opinions of you simply don't matter much anymore. It's not that I stopped caring about being right, it's that I started caring more about being at peace. Here's something that changes the moment you cross a certain age. Our time on this earth is not unlimited. And somewhere in our 50s and beyond, that stops being an abstract idea and starts being something we actually feel. Arguing takes an enormous amount of energy. So does correcting people. And so does managing the little dramas that other people try to pull us into. So I have almost no tolerance left for drama that doesn't matter. When I feel a pointless fight starting to brew, I don't lean in the way I once did. And I've gotten much better at saying one small word: no. No, I'm not going to get into that. No, I'm not available for that conversation. Older people, I think, learn to say no more easily. And it isn't because we've turned cold. It's because we finally understood that every yes to something draining is a no to something that fills us up. Correcting people, arguing with people, proving myself to people, all of it needlessly drains energy. Another area that I've stopped engaging in is when people make assumptions about my life. You're at a gathering, a holiday, a reunion, a wedding, and you're around people that you haven't seen in a long while. And they start making assumptions about your life, about how you spend your time, about your choices, about what you must be doing or not doing all day. As long as it isn't something horribly off base about my character, as long as they're not saying something genuinely untrue about the kind of person that I am, I just let it be. Because if they aren't part of my inner circle, I don't care about what they think I do with my time. Correcting people about my own life takes mental effort, and I'd rather save that effort for the people who actually know and love me. I don't need validation from a casual acquaintance I see once a year. My sense of who I am is already secure, and it doesn't require their sign-off. People outside my inner circle are never going to fully know me or understand my life anyway. Expecting them to is just setting myself up to be frustrated. I also don't need anyone's approval or recognition for the way I live. If a person is genuinely curious, if they actually want to get to know me and understand my choices, that's a completely different thing. And I'm glad to open that door. But there's a real difference between curiosity and judgment. It makes those gatherings so much less stressful when you stop managing what everyone else in the room thinks of you. You can just be there letting the small assumptions slide. So somebody thinks I sit around all day. Somebody thinks I should be doing more or less or something different. All right, they can think it. I know what my days actually hold, and their picture of my life doesn't change one thing about how good it actually feels to live. You might be thinking this whole video is about giving up, backing down, and deciding that you don't matter enough to speak up. It's exactly the opposite. The decision to stay quiet, to not argue, not correct, not defend myself to people who don't really know me, that decision comes from confidence and wisdom. It does not come from giving up, and it does not come from thinking that I don't matter. It comes from finally being secure enough that I no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Every single thing I've talked about today comes back to one choice. I would rather be happy and at peace than be right. So now when I feel that pull to argue, correct, or explain myself, I ask just one question: is this going to bring me peace? And most of the time, the answer sends me right back to my coffee, my book, and my quiet afternoons, my actual life. Tell me in the comments, what's something that you finally learned to let go of? Thank you so much for watching.